Girl comedian Judge Miles, and we are back with another episode of the Verdict Podcast. Now, I know you guys have missed me, and some of you may have even been wondering, where is her podcast? Never mind all of that. We are back live, loud, and in color. And we have things to talk about. So many topics, so many things have been happening in the world since we have been on our hiatus. And today, we're going to get into those things. Before we get into anything, we have to do a PSA and we have to let all of the viewers know that this podcast is for adults and adults only. There will be profanity. If that is not your type of jig, then this is not the podcast for you. We like individuals who are able to agree to disagree and don't allow their panties to get in a bunch. We want mature audience only. Everything that we do here on the Verdict Podcast is done in a comedic light. And anything I say or do has nothing to do with any business, organization, or association that the judge is a part of. I stand alone and alone only. Make sure you guys go pick up a copy of my stand up, The Verdict, which is now available on Amazon as well. We're going to get into some things. What we're talking about today, what's the verdict for today? People are saying that it is easier for individuals to use their traumas as an excuse rather than to get through the traumas and grow and develop and become a better person. So many people are experiencing trauma and stress. The statistic shows that 70% of America has went through some type of traumatic experience within their lives. And 63.9% of the US American adults have at least experienced one adverse childhood experience. So I say this to say many people are in the same boat. They have traumatic experiences that they could talk about and they could rely on when they want to stay in a situation that they could use as an excuse. But you also have individuals who have those same traumatic experiences who choose to rise above those experiences, do better, be better, and become a better person. And they don't use those experiences as a clutch. And we're going to talk about the individuals who choose to use these traumas as a clutch. Well, here are some of the things that you need to know. Some researchers suggest that it is as high as 80% of Americans that will experience trauma at some point. So this is not a minority situation. This is a majority. Majority of the people that you meet have a story to tell you. However, does that make it okay for you to be a bad person, for you to act out, for you to be shitty towards others, for you to never accomplish anything, for you to be angry all the time, for you to be nasty, bitter, for you to be jealous, for you to be spiteful? Does that make it right because you've experienced some type of trauma? We hear it all the time. Well, I'm this way because my father wasn't there. My mother wasn't there because no one cared for me, because I was given up at birth. All of these excuses have created a hindrance in your life. Are you that person? Let's talk about it. Stress and trauma are related, but they're completely different. We're going to talk about stress for a little bit. PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder, is a cause in many people. A lot of people have experienced things in their lives which has caused them to shut down, caused them to feel isolated, caused them to act out. And this is called PTSD. So 3.6% of US adults have PTSD in a given year. And about 6 to 7 Americans will have PTSD at some point in their lives. And roughly 13 million US Americans are living with PTSD in a given year. Okay. And about 19.1% of Americans experience anxiety disorder in some type of fashion. Okay. And it's chronically tied to stress. So, what I'm trying to express to you guys is people are stressed out. It's a norm right now. You have this crazy ass president that's causing all type of war and nonsense with other countries and making the US a target. You have the media that is constantly portraying negativity day in and day out, which is causing more stress. You have gas prices rising. You have food that's expensive. You have people who are experiencing childcare situations that they never experienced before. And so people are stressed out. But is it an excuse to be an asshole? Is it an excuse to be a shitty person on a day to day basis? And I'm going to have to tell you, my verdict is absolutely not. It's not an excuse to be a shitty person. You need to take accountability over your actions. Sometimes people use trauma as a shield from accountability. That word accountability is a big to some people. Some people hate taking accountability because that means that they have to admit that they've done something wrong. They have to admit that they need to improve. They have to admit that they need to enhance their behaviors, their activities, their actions. That means that they have to change. And I'm going to tell you something, people. A lot of individuals enjoy staying the way that they are so that they won't have to change. Because change requires work, and a lot of people don't want to work. A lot of people are scared of making a change and putting in the proper steps that they need to take in order to become a better person, to have a better life. Some people lean on trauma to avoid responsibilities. We see this all the time. How many times have you seen someone who was homeless who claimed that this is where they are because they lost their job and now their whole life has fallen apart? And even though this is extremely common for a lot of people and it happens and it's true, we're not going to be dismissive. That doesn't mean that that's the end of your story. That doesn't mean that that's an excuse to stay where you are. You hear people a lot of times say, I act like this because of what I went through. They're using their traumas as a crutch to be in the state that they're in. They don't want you to challenge their actions. They don't want you to challenge how they behave. They don't want you to challenge how they're not accomplishing the goals that you and I both know that they can do. So they say that this is why they're like this because of what they've been through. Sometimes you might hear people say, well, that's just how I am. And they want you to deal with their behavior. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're around people like that, you may want to get away from them because that type of energy, that type of mindset, that low level mindset will eventually bring you down as well. You want to make sure that you're around people who, even though they've been through trauma, even though they've been through heartache, they've been through disappointment, they've been through abandonment, they have rised above. They understand that rising above is the only way to truly get through the trauma. They understand that making excuses for the trauma is not going to get them anywhere. You hear some people say, you gotta accept me like this. They want you to lower your standards so that you can deal with their bullshit. And I'm gonna tell you right now, order in the court. You don't have to lower your standards because someone has been through trauma. You don't have to deal with other people's bullshit and negative responses because they've been through trauma. You have to tell a lot of these people that they have to man up. So many people have the same story that you have, and so many people have stories that are even more elaborate than you can even imagine. And yet, and still, they chose to make better decisions every single day going into their lives, no matter what they've been through. They chose not to use things as a crutch. Let's look at Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey has come out publicly and announced that she was molested. She has so many childhood issues. But look at who she is today. She is world renowned. She is one of the richest Black women in America. She has done so much for media. What if Oprah Winfrey would have allowed that situation, which was terrible, bad, to cause her to not excel, to hold her back from her dreams and her aspirations? Look at Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was the poster child for abuse. We know that he comes from very humble beginnings. What if Michael Jackson would have allowed all of those ass whoopings, all of that trauma to stop him from being the world's biggest pop king in the world? We talk about people sometimes and we think that they're just one facet. And we don't understand that a lot of times people are multifaceted. They have done many things and been through many things, and they still have overcame, and they still have shown the world and shown themselves that they're more than what they've been through. You're not who you've been through or what you've been through. You're not where you come from. You can rise above. At that point, trauma isn't just an explanation, it becomes a justification to you staying the same way. It's an excuse. Nowadays, you see so many people relying on what they've been through, their hurts and their pains. It seems like it gets them more attention. Just think about it. Look on social media. Every single day, you have multiple people crying about life. This isn't happening for them. That isn't happening for them. This person didn't do this for them. They didn't get this opportunity. Somebody is hating on them. Somebody wasn't there for them. Their mother did this. Their father did this. Their kids did this. Their grandma wasn't there. Whatever the case may be, you see constantly. And then you see people constantly replying to it, liking it, sharing it, commenting on it. A lot of times people use their traumas for attention. They're yearning for attention, to be seen, to be liked, to have people feel empathy for them. And more importantly, sometimes that can be looked at as annoying, maybe a little bit pathetic at sometimes, because everyone has a story. And here's the reality, America: nobody truly cares. I know this is a harsh reality, but nobody truly cares. Let's just be honest here. When somebody asks you, how is your day? Do you think they truly want to hear all of the things that has happened in your day? No, it's just a figure of speech. Nobody truly cares what goes on in your life. People are so concerned with themselves that they have no more interest for what other people are going through. They could care less, particularly because they're also probably going through something. And yet and still, they still wake up every single day and do the things that they need to do. They don't make excuses. They say that people make excuses for the things that they don't want to do, and they find solutions for the things that they do want to do. Growth requires discomfort. And we all know that people don't like to sit in discomfort because discomfort requires self reflection. And how many of us really have taken the time to see who we are, what we need to do to be better, what we can do to change? How many of us have sat in our poor decisions, our bad decision making skills? How many of us have looked at these things? How many of us have tried to correct it? A lot of times it's a nasty, nasty feeling to have to self reflect on the poor choices and the bad things that we've done in our lives. And this sometimes is a true hindrance as to why people rather just sit in their traumas rather than do better and become more in their lives. Growth requires discomfort, and that's going to require you to have accountability in which you're saying, I did something. It's not always somebody else's fault. When you're pointing your finger at people, guess what? You have four more fingers pointing back at you. What could you have done to be better? What could you have said for this situation to have went better than it went? What could you have thought in your mind so that you could actually work on your goals? See, a lot of times the thought is what causes the action. If you're thinking negatively, then guess what? Negative comes out of that. If you're thinking positively, then guess what? Positive things come out of that. You have to talk to yourself and you got to speak life in yourself. It is death or life in that tongue. And you have to watch the things that you say. You have to watch the things that you think. You have to watch the way that you act. You have to take accountability over your life. How many times have you heard somebody always complaining? You know this person is at your job. You may be with this person in the house. You may have this person as a sibling. This person constantly complains. It's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. And think about it. How far have they went in life? Could they be further? These are the questions that you have to ask yourself. Uncomfortable change is what's needed in order for you to move past your traumas, move past the excuses, and get to whatever it is that you need to get through the hurt, to get through the pain, to get through the abandonment, to get through whatever it is you're experiencing. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Some people haven't learned how to do that. And I understand that. Some people don't want to learn how to do that. Some people don't have the support that they think that they need. Some people simply don't want to do the work. Let's talk about it. Some people don't want to do the work. It requires too much. It requires you to sit with yourself too long. It requires you to have to make these changes that you've become comfortable. You've become comfortable in your life. You have become comfortable with being mediocre, with being a person who constantly has excuses. You've become comfortable. And comfort is destruction for any person who's trying to be successful. You have to come out of your comfort zone. What does that look like? Maybe you may need to go to therapy. Maybe you may need to face your fears, whatever those fears are. Maybe you may need to confront the individuals who have caused you the heartache or the pain. Maybe you may need to journal. Maybe you may need to do positive affirmations on a daily basis to give you that strength to be able to work through your traumas. Maybe it's the people that's around you. Maybe they're constantly bringing up the traumas. Maybe you may need to get yourself out of the environment that you're in and put yourself in a more positive environment, an environment that allows you to grow, an environment that waters you, an environment that helps you be a better person, right? Maybe there's changes that you have to start on before you can actually see what it is you need to see. The environment and the culture also plays a huge role in your traumas and changing your outlook and your outcomes. In some communities, traumas get normalized. We normalize a lot of traumas. That's just how life is. That's just how it's going to be. That's just how it has been, right? We normalize traumas. It's traumatic for a young girl to deal with an older man. She may not understand it at the time, but it's traumatic because she's being taken advantage of, right? And a lot of times in communities, we normalize this type of behavior. Oh, that's just the way it's always been. It's always been like that. Sometimes we joke about the traumas when it's not funny. Sometimes people never properly address their traumas. You know, I live in a society where, especially in the Black culture, we have been known to be so strong, so fearless, so stoic that when we go through things, the world, our household expects us to sweep it under the rug, to keep going, to keep trucking. And we've become accustomed to that type of behavior. We become used to dealing with issues in that type of way by sweeping them under the rug. But that's not truly dealing with the issues. That's not truly digging in and finding out, how did we get here? What were the steps that were taken for me to end up in this situation? We haven't dissected our lives. And that's an issue. That's a problem. We haven't properly addressed it. So instead of healing, people carry it and operate from it. That's what you see in today's society. You see a young lady and she's always angry. She's always mad. This could be white or black or green or purple, whatever the case may be. And when you take the time to talk to her, she has a story. But she hasn't dealt with her issues. And this is coming out through her actions in her everyday life because she hasn't properly addressed her situation, whatever that situation is, whatever she's facing. The truth is this: trauma can explain behavior, but it's not an excuse. It can help you understand why a person behaves the way that they behave, but it's not an excuse to stay there. It should never be an excuse to be harmful to yourself and to others. It should never be an excuse for you to stay in a situation long term. It's not good for your mental, it's not good for your growth. A healthy mindset is going to rely on you making the changes, first seeing that you need to make the changes, and then making those changes. What happened to me isn't my fault, is what some people need to start with. You need to forgive yourself for those situations that you've been through. Maybe you put yourself through them, or maybe it wasn't your fault. You were involuntarily put in the situations. Forgive yourself. Allow yourself the opportunity to move on from it. How many times have you been angry and upset with a person who's done you wrong? And when you talk to that person, or when someone else talks to that person, they're living their lives. They've forgotten what they've done to you, but you're stuck in that same situation from when they did it to you. You haven't been able to move on, but the other person has. You have to forgive yourself. Forgiving yourself is crucial for moving on to the next state of your life. Forgiving your enemies is crucial for moving on and allowing that trauma not to be an excuse in your life. You need to move forward. You need to say to yourself, I move forward in my responsibilities. You can't change the things that you can't change. You can only change what is in your realm of being able to change, which is yourself and your actions. Nobody else. Here's the bottom line. People use trauma as an excuse for different reasons. They're still affected and they don't know how to cope. So sometimes you can see it as an excuse, but really they're using it as a defense mechanism to get through life because they don't know how to cope. They're avoiding accountability. They're stuck in their environment and they do not see how they're able to get to growth because nothing in their environment is promoting growth. So one may ask, what can you do to get out of this trauma? And you know what I would tell you? The first thing you have to do is you have to pray. First thing you have to do is you have to pray. Sometimes you just got to drop down on your knees and you just got to ask the Heavenly Father, the Most High, to help you, to give you the strength, to give you the power to move through it. Sometimes you got to cry. Sometimes you got to let it out. We try to be too strong. And we don't understand that we're humans and we simply have emotions. And it's okay to be sad, but it's not okay to waddle in it for long periods of time. You got to get up. After you cry, after you pray, after you ask the Most High to give you the tips and the tools, to give you discernment, to give you wisdom, after you've begged and pleaded and cried and prayed, then you got to get up. And then you got to make a plan. Trauma isn't just memory. It's your body staying in survival mode. You got to come up out of that survival mode and you got to start living your life. You have to understand that you only get one life and you have to live it to the fullest. And you can't live your life to the fullest if you're using your traumas as an excuse constantly. You can't continue to stay in survival mode and still thrive. You got to come up out of that survival mode. So you might have to overact fast. Okay? You might have to overact fast, which means that you have no more time to pussyfoot around. You have to get to the issues. You have to find the solutions. You got to start living your life. You have to start looking at things that make you feel uncomfortable head on. You have to realize how strong you are and how much you've accomplished in life. Yes, you've been through some things. Yes, it's hurted, but you still can do it. You still can make it. You got to stay off your guard and allow yourself to live life. Because staying on your guard is going to cause you to allow life to pass you by. The first step is realizing this is the response, not who I am. Whatever you've been through, it's not who you are. It's just the response to what you've been through. You can change your attitude. You can change the trajectory of your life. You can. The question is, do you want to? You need to talk it out. Talk it out to yourself. Talk it out to your therapist. Talk it out. Talking to yourself sometimes is one of the most therapeutic things you can possibly do. Sometimes you got to hear it out loud, what you're going through. Sometimes you got to say the things out loud to really get through it. You need a place where you can be honest without judgment. Invest in a therapist. Therapy is crucial when you're trying to get through these childhood traumas, adult traumas, heartbreak after heartbreak. Talk to a trusted friend. Maybe go to some support groups. These are all starts to a brand new life. A life that is not full of excuses. A life that is not holding you down because you're boggled with reasons as to why you can't, why you don't, why you haven't. Get your body out of survival mode. Trauma lives in the body. Don't you know that certain traumas can cause death? If you keep on thinking about this stuff will stress you out. If you refuse to move forward, that stuff sets up in your body. Trauma lives in the body, not just the mind. Things that can actually help. Start exercising. Start putting more time into you to be a better you. Use deep breathing strategies. When you feel anxiety coming over your body, when you feel that stress coming over your body, breathe in, breathe out. Meditation. Sometimes you just gotta be still. When is the last time you've been still in your thoughts, in your mind? Turn off the phones, turn off the TVs, turn off YouTube, and be still. Hear God. Let Him tell you how to move, when to move, what to do, and who to do it with. These are the things that you have to do in order to move past those traumas. If your body is calm, your mind starts to follow that. You need to be in a calm state. You can't always be on edge, ready to go, ready to pop off because of things that has happened in your life. That type of behavior creates a domino effect of more energy for people who's ready to pop off. Now you always in spicy situations and you don't understand how. It's the trauma that you haven't let go, that you've allowed to overtake your life, that you've allowed to set up shop in your life, and that's coming through your actions. You have to separate yourself. What happened to you and who you are two different things. It's not your fault. Separate yourself. How you act is your responsibility. How you choose to respond is your responsibility. Ask yourself, is this reaction helping or harming me? Ask yourself that next time. Is this reaction helping or harming me? Am I repeating patterns? Generational curses? Am I doing the same things that I claim to hate? Sometimes you gotta talk to yourself. Healing starts when you stop saying, this is just how I am. When you stop succumbing to your pain, that's when your healing starts. Change your patterns on purpose. This has to be a strategic move in your life. You have to be intentional with changing your patterns and being purposeful with how you react and how you see life. You got to remember, trauma creates habits. You have to break them intentionally. You can't wait for somebody else to break them. You got to break them. If you shut down, practice speaking up. If you explode, pause before reacting. If you're the type of person that likes to avoid things, then face them in small steps. You don't wait to feel different. You act different first. You got to make the first move. Then you got to give it time. But don't use time as an excuse. But give it time. Give yourself time. Understand that this is going to be a process. Understand that you're not the only person that's in this situation. We talked about statistics. They say up to 80% of Americans will experience some type of trauma in their life. And 70% of Americans right now are experiencing trauma in their life. And so many Americans are stressed out for various reasons. So you got to give yourself time. Give yourself permission to change. Healing is not quick, but you got to start somewhere. But here's the truth. Time alone doesn't heal. Time in itself doesn't heal. You have to do the work. You have to be intentional about the work. Intentional work over time does work. Let me say that again. Intentional work over time does work. But you, and only you, are the person that's able to do the work. Only you know what you've been through. Only you know what you need. Only you know the things that you need to do in order to make your life better and to be happier, to be a more pleasant person, to be a more successful person, to be a more knowledgeable person, to be a nicer person, to be a more loving person, to let go that hurt, to let go that bitterness. Only you know. And it's going to take intentional work. Here's the real talk. Here's the verdict. Some people stay stuck in their ways for years, not because they can't heal, but because it's uncomfortable, because it requires discipline. Discipline is knowing that there is something else that you could do, but you choose to make this right decision. Yes, you could eat 22 donuts, but you've chosen to be abstinent from eating any sweets. Discipline. You've chosen to go to the gym 5 days a week. You've chosen to drink nothing but water instead of pop. You've chosen to be better, to do better. Some people can't heal because it forces them to face themselves. That's deep right there. It forces them to face themselves. Sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow to know that, damn, I made a lot of fucked up decisions. If I would have just did this or listened to my mom or prayed more, I could be in a better situation. If I would have just held off and waited for the Most High, I could have been in a better situation. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow to know that you're the person that has put you in this situation. You're the person that has caused yourself these traumas. These traumas and this stress would not have been able or possible if you did not do A, B, C, and D. Sometimes it's tough to face yourself. But getting out of trauma looks like understanding your triggers. You got to know what your triggers is. And if you know them, then you're able to be preventative. You don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive in understanding what are my triggers? Why do I act this way? What people come around and make me feel this way? What's the environment that I'm in? What causes this? Okay, I see that when I do this or when I hear this or when I'm around this person, this makes me feel this way. This brings up this out of me. Maybe it's a relative that constantly brings the worst out of you. Sometimes you have to extract yourself from those situations. Sometimes you have to get low on those people, get ghosts, and get to yourself. Sometimes you have to eliminate those people out of your lives. You got to learn how to regulate your emotions. And that's going to take having some type of emotional intelligence. Understanding where you are as a person and your emotions, understanding the things that you can do and you can't do, the people you can be around and the people you can't be around, understanding the environments you should go in and the environments that you should never go in. You have to learn how to regulate your emotions because there's always going to be somebody or something that's going to try to trigger you, that's going to try to bring stress into your life. There's always going to be a reason or a way that you could use your traumas, but why would you? You got to take responsibilities of your actions. Yeah, you. And you have to rewire how you respond to life. You can't keep doing things the same way you've always done them just because this is how it's been. You have to rewrite your actions and your responses. The goal is I went through it, but it doesn't control me anymore. I said I went through it, but it doesn't control me anymore. Do you know how much freer you become when you don't allow your traumas to control you, to dictate where you go and how you behave? Trauma ain't your personality. It's something you've been through, but it's not who you are. Once you understand that, you're on your way. You're on your way to something beautiful. You're on your way to unlocking so many accomplishments in your life, so many next steps in your life. You're on your way. And I'm here to tell you that you can do it. You guys, I'm so happy that we came back. This is a short episode, but nonetheless, it is an episode to help motivate and uplift you. I want you to know that you are not out there by yourself with your traumas, with your stress. So many Americans are going through it, but understand this, it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to stay in that sorry position that you may be in. It's not an excuse to continue to be a shitty person. It's not an excuse to not excel and do better. It's not an excuse. You have to take control of your life and take control of your actions. And that's the verdict. Until next time, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And understand this, you already know that when the judge is in, the verdict is out.